Hey guys, and welcome to the first of my series. First in the series? I don't know. The series is named Feedback, though. Basically because I'm taking replays from the subreddit r/Starcraft_feedback and watching replays, and in a very low-key fashion, we're gonna go through and watch the player, and usually they have some questions they're asking, and we'll try to answer them and try to see what we would do in their situation, what they are trying to do, why they are trying to do these things, etc., etc., etc. Try to get our minds analyzing the game so that I can become a better caster and a better player, and you can find some maybe tips from it as well. I don't know. I'm not a very smart guy. I'm just a low league platinum player, so, you know, what do I actually know? I don't know. But, you know, with our minds together, we can always find some things that can help us, yada yada yada. But yeah, so let's first introduce our players. In the top left, we have ZvZ as the pink Zerg, and a person who put in this replay as the red Zerg in the bottom right is KThnxBaiNao. I think. Let's go, nope, that's not, yeah, there we go. Let's go back to the, yeah, KThnxBaiNao. Here we go. Okay, excellent. Back to the game. Apparently this is his first game. He thought he was going to play versus AI. Accidentally played against a player in unranked matches, I think, right? Or maybe just against the Platinum Zerg. I don't know if it was ranked or unranked. But he's wondering what I should have done differently. It's my first game against a real person, and I feel like there's a lot to learn. So, yeah, let's start looking at what's going on. I'm not going to be casting as much in this series, as I'll be just watching and going through slowly what both players are doing. Spawning pool coming down for KThnx around 13-14. ZvZ seemed to have come down earlier, and he is taking the gas. That's probably something we want to talk about, especially in ZvZ. ZvZ doing a little harassment there, no big deal. Not a big deal, but yeah, thinking about the builds. Oh, that's one of those things that we can talk about later, but let's see where to start. Well, yeah, okay, first it seems like there's a bit of worry. Nice catch there. KThnx, no need to keep on highlighting the guys and readjusting them to the mineral field. That's probably an accident from being so excited about playing a real player. Putting a spine crawler down there. Another spine crawler down here. I don't think either of those are quite necessary. Maybe it's because you saw the Zerglings coming down. Let's go back and see if you did see that. Back, 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 back. No, the Zerglings popped. And, with no real ideas, the spine crawlers were put down early on. It's a good thing you did make spine crawlers, but this is usually not a standard for a Zerg build against another Zerg. They are good defenses, though. Make no mistake, so that's good. Generally, in ZvZ, I like to try to... Nice bit of defense here, keeping the spine crawler alive. As I was saying, generally if I'm playing ZvZ, I try to get ahead with map control. Getting Zergling speed, which will make your Zerglings that much more powerful against his Zerglings, especially if they're lacking speed. ZvZ is taking that speed early on, He has a bit more experience with this timing. Another spine crawler going down. You are losing workers that way. Less minerals coming in for you. I guess minerals aren't really an issue though, as you are at 400. Consistent larva injects are pretty big deal, but you know that. Hard place here with the Zerglings coming in. Sadly, spine crawlers not particularly the best against Zerglings because there's just so many of them. Roach warns are always a good idea. Nice micro here. You definitely took the advantage, even with the slow links. And now Zuggzugg is taking his second. Not where his natural usually is, but I think he's probably trying to hide this. Do you know about it? No. Obviously not. And now you have a bunch more Zerglings. But they're just kind of sitting here on the defensive, which I can understand, you know. But as he gets slightly more forward and puts down the Baneling's nest, you're being put into a slightly more difficult position. And yeah, you see these speed Zerglings just getting into your base now. They can just run by as quick as they want. It's pretty ridiculous how fast they are, really. So it's always good to use your first 100 gas to get that metabolic boost fast. What I usually do is, if you're taking the pool at around 13, 14, or 15 workers in ZvZ, I suggest as 13 as greedy as you can be. You want to get that extractor right after you pop the pool, and then you want to put 3 on the pool as soon as you can. That way, about 20 seconds after the pool's done, you can stir it on Zergling speed. And the next thing you can get is that Baneling's nest, because there are a lot of Zergling pushes that happen early on, and the Banelings, like just having 2 Banelings at the top of your ramp, can do amazing things against a pack of Zerglings. And then you don't have to worry about roaches so much, because with the speed Zerglings, you can keep on scouting, keep on harassing, so that you can figure out if they're going roaches and when they're going to push out. Another larva inject you might want to look out for. As Zerg, one of the things you want to do is keep on with your larva inject. Keep that queen's energy low all the time. And if you have extra energy, you can always spend it on something else, like a creep tumor if you wish. But yeah, keeping down with those larva injects, very, very important. Also, at this point, you will kind of want to have an idea of which build order you want to go for. That comes in to play with what kind of style you want to play. Do you want to play aggressive? Do you want to be defensive? If you're playing econ heavy, usually that calls for a slightly more defensive kind of play. If you want to be aggressive, you can't be as econ heavy, so then you want to get those upgrades faster so that you can deal more damage. Either way, getting those upgrades started here with the evolution chamber is pretty important, even when we're still in the Zergling fight stage, around 4 minutes, 3 minutes. I usually put down at least 1 evolution chamber and start on melee, because I'm more of a fan of the Zergling speed. If you're more of a roach fan, then you can start going for range quicker, but that means you should put down your roaches faster as well. A nice army that you're gathering here, but as you can tell by the unit amounts here, Zuggzugg is, Zuggzugg, let's look at the unit count here. Zuggzugg is more ahead on drones, less on army. And so I guess a good place to have stopped would be at around 11. minutes where you had a ton more army than ZvZ, that would be a good time to push out, possibly. But since you haven't scouted, you don't know if you have to be defensive or not. And here's ZvZ scouting what you're doing. He sees the roaches, so he's gonna move back, because if you only had Zerglings, he would have attacked with the banelings, destroyed all of your guys, etc., etc. So nice with the roaches. And really, if you're gonna have a spine crawler, you can just put him in dab stack in the middle, especially because it'll make this choke a little smaller, and you can put the roaches surrounding it. Again, larva injects, of course, always, you know. You'll hear people talking about macro all the time. Good idea with the spire. So if you like going Zerglings to Muta, then what I would suggest is taking that spawning pool 13, getting that gas, getting that quick speed, getting the melee or the armor, and just constantly harassing the opponent, and then going into Muta while you're taking your second and your third. But yeah, so far so good. You're kind of behind on workers still, though, if you look at that. 34 drones to 24, so use ZvZ as an example of how many drones you should have at certain points. And the better you get, the more you can become greedier. And you see what ZvZ there? He came in to scout you again. So he saw that spire coming up. So he knows what you're going for. And he knows that he's safe because he's got the ultras out first. So usual ultra timing that you'll want to know, around 12:30 for really good players. So around 11:30, you want to move all of your overlords back and pop a couple more queens like you're doing, so that you can help in this fight. Right now your queens aren't doing anything. You could have definitely won that fight against those mutalisks there. And now these guys are gonna focus on the queens. We'll focus on the mutalisk. No, the queen first, yeah. And then the spire. And the spore crawlers are a little late. So it's just some timing issues and scouting issues. And some micro. No need to be sad about it. Damn it. Stop being sad. And ZvZ is now, because he has the Muta bonus, he's just going to keep on making Mutalisks. And since your Spire has gone down, he can, he can move into almost whatever he wants. Thankfully his micro isn't the best. Again, right now when your Mutas are fighting other Mutas, always good to get the queens underneath. But yeah, nice, nice amount of spore crawlers. Really, all you need is one here. This is a good place, and one here, kind of like where you have it, for both bases. Yeah, exactly, perfect placement. And usually, once you start popping out multiple queens, the great thing is the queens will be able to start transfusing each other and keeping them alive as your mutas start popping out and destroying his. So it looks like ZvZ is just harassing you more. Also, if you have a ground army that's much stronger than his, which is non-existent at your front right now, yeah. What you usually want to do when his mutas are there and your guys can't do anything, just start going towards his base. His mutas will have to go back to try and get rid of these guys, which will give you more time to pop out more mutas of your own, get more queens out, put down your spore defenses, and such. So you're hurting on a base, you have a third, but that's going to get taken down. Zerglings and mutas now being sent over. You're kind of hesitant here on what to do with your workers, or I mean your roaches. Finally, you're going into his main, but you know, he's probably not very worried about this amount of things. The muta's still doing a bunch of damage at your third, and now finally probably moving into your main. Nice pushes with the roaches here, dealing as much damage as you can. But the painful thing is, with the mutas here, kind of terrible trouble. So here's the thing, if you go roaches, then you might want to think about going hydras first, or infestors. Probably hydras, because infestors are very hard to micro, because of the nerfs that they've taken. Because roaches cost gas. That means if he never makes roaches, then he's going to have more gas to get to mutas quicker than you are, right? So what you'll want to do is, if you go roaches for defense early on, which is very safe against zerglings and banelings, then that means that when you get your lair, you'll want to get that hydralisk den up, because that hydralisk den takes half as much time as that spire that you had. Once you have that hydralisk den, you can pop out the queens, you can get some hydras out, put down a couple spore crawlers, and try to keep your bases defended while you get more zerglings out, just to start harassing him and keep him from getting his third base or his fourth base while you take more bases. And that way, once you have a gigantic army of roaches and hydras that he can't possibly take down, then you can just walk into his base, and it doesn't matter what the mutas do. The mutas won't stand a chance against all of the hydras and roaches. So, you know, that's something to think about. And looks like you guys are done, and you guys are just talking right now. I think you actually did very good for your first game. So we'll just pause here and talk about some things we've talked about. We'll just recap on the things we've talked about so that you have some basis for where you want to start from. First, some early build order timings. I would suggest following what ZvZ did in the beginning, because getting that gas early is pretty powerful, especially for zergling speed. That not only gives you map control, but it lets you keep on scouting as he did. Remember that zergling that ran by your base as your spire was coming up? That was a huge advantage for him to know that. And it always keeps the other person in pressure. It forced you to make roaches. And if you had gone banelings, it would have forced you to use gas for banelings as well. So that's always good. And that's just for 100 gas. You know, that's the earliest 100 gas, but it's totally worth it. Armor is a good tech to get as well, because if you get one armor, before one armor, one baneling hit kills how many bunches of zerglings, as many, you know, as in incident's range. As soon as you get one armor, or plus one armor, it takes 2 baneling hits to kill a zergling, making him cost more banelings. That's more gas. That means you tech faster, and if you micro well, it might cost him all of his banelings, and you might only lose like 3 zerglings, which is, you know, quite good for you. Very wonderful, super fantastic. You see here ZvZ is at 13, and you know, if people are trying to scout, usually just one guy to focus on that scouting drone is totally enough. So, you know, don't worry about that. Yeah, 13 gas, ZvZ safe to 200 to get that pool first. And you see that extractor going down. It's a pretty solid build what ZvZ does. Getting that zergling speed and everything is pretty good. So that's the first thing. Second thing is know what build order you want to go for. If you want to be aggressive early game with zergling speed, that means that you probably don't need to get the baneling's nest as early, but you will probably. And that also means you probably don't have to get the roaches earlier, unless you're thinking of doing a roach all-in and destroying him very quickly. That means you can get your gases, and then save the gas for teching earlier, going up and getting those mutas faster. If you want to play more defensive against zergling pushes, baneling buffs, and whatnot, then you probably want the roaches. And that means you're going to cost more gas, which means you're going to be teching later. That means you'll probably want to get the Hydra then to compensate for the the mutas that will come out earlier. Honestly, Hydras aren't like the greatest counter to mutas though, because of how slow they are, and it's hard to take these other bases. Thankfully, the Roaches and Hydras, if you clump them in nice amounts, and if you make sure to make a spore here, a spore there, spore at, you know, in the good places, then you can just leave these clumps to defend and start expanding. Another thing to think about is your Sim City, is what they call it, where your building placement can make choke points smaller. For instance, if we go into the middle of the game, here, you have all of this space you have to defend, and now you have this space to defend. Obviously, you can close these rocks down so that this doesn't become as much of a problem, and you can put an overlord here to scout to see if these rock towers, once it's a wall, see if anybody's breaking it down. But another great thing is that a lot of people do is put evolutionary chambers here, 1 and 2. That makes this choke this much smaller, and if you put the spine here, that makes it about this small. And with this amount of roaches, it becomes quite easy to defend. So, you know, think about where you're placing your buildings as well. That's always, you know, important point. Key buildings like this, of course, keeping them in the back isn't such a bad idea either. But yeah, I think there's a lot of things for you to think about, and I think you played a very good game for your first game. Nice read, nice on your build orders, nice try. And I hope we were able to help you out. And yeah, good luck with your future games.